Thank you, Speaker. Today I rise on behalf of the Ontario PC Caucus and, of course, our leader, Patrick Brown. At 5 a.m. on April 9th, 1917, 30,000 Canadian troops huddled below France's cold, unforgiving Vimy Ridge, awaiting a signal that would spark one of the bravest, brutal military operations and change the course of history forever. Some 4 days later, the clearing smoke revealed the price that our proud Canadian heroes were willing to pay for our freedom, for the world's freedom. As reports revealed, 3,598 Canadians killed, 7,004 wounded, and one battle-scarred strategic and vital Vimy Ridge taken and secured, now in the hands of the Allies. Speaker, over those 4 days, all 4 Canadian divisions worked in concert to do what previous Allied forces had failed to do: stand up to the enemy at this critical dividing line and push him back until victory was finally and decidedly secured. Despite withering machine gun fire and counter-artillery from the German line, the 4 Canadian divisions pushed forward. Despite brutal hand-to-hand combat and casualties mounting, the 4 Canadian divisions pushed forward, breaking into the German trenches and capturing many of their objectives the first day of the assault. One by one over the 4 days, in wave after wave, Canadian troops stormed, fought, and overtook 4 separate lines of defence the Germans had long maintained as a virtual unbreakable wall of enemy dominance. One by one, heroic troops took each successive step, breaking what couldn't be broken. As they marched onward to the victory they would not be denied, by 6:15 a.m., the Germans' Black Line had been taken. 45 minutes later, under smoke and still falling snow, the 1st Division advanced and took the Red Line. By 11 a.m., the Blue Line was under Canadian control, and by 2 p.m., the Brown Line was secured. Step by devastating step, our Vimy heroes marched on, until by the morning of the 4th day, the northernmost part of the ridge, defended by the elite Prussian Guards of the German Army, had finally been taken. When the sound of booming artillery had silenced the ultimate sacrifice of our Canadian troops, secured 5 kilometres along the line, 4,000 German soldiers were captured along the hundreds of heavy guns and supplies. But, Speaker, we had gained much more than just land and guns. The unwavering will and never-surrender onslaught brought by those heroes on that lonely, cold ridge in many ways marked the emergence of the Canada we are so proud to be a part of a century later. In the words of Brigadier General Alexander Ross, "It was Canada from the Atlantic to the Pacific on parade. I thought then, and I think today, that in those moments I witnessed the birth of a nation." Indeed, Speaker, the united effort that saw Canadians from all parts of our vast great nation fighting side by side at Vimy Ridge marked our first step into nationhood, steps that saw our troops come together both on the ground, on that escarpment, and back home, when our national pride swelled to hear that our Canadian Corps had succeeded where so many had failed. It was a moment when Canadians felt nationhood, a pride in ourselves. Speaker, in the coming week, there will be many of us in Canada taking our own steps towards marking the 100 years since the heroic Canadian capture of Vimy Ridge, an opportunity to share our national gratitude for the bravery, heroism, and true Canadian grit of those who sacrificed all for us on those cold April mornings. I look forward to the chance to join with my colleague from Bruce Grey Owen Sound and thousands of school children from across Canada and so many others as we step foot on the ground that was secured for us 1 century ago. Where 100 years ago battle raged, today there now stands a radiant Vimy monument on land gifted to Canada by the French government after the war. Many are familiar with the memorial and statue of a woman representing Canada, a young nation mourning her dead. Below is a tomb to remind us of the soldiers killed in France who have no graves. And while we recognize overseas, we also recognize the work of our Vimy Foundation and ongoing efforts that have helped launch a state-of-the-art Vimy Visitor Education Centre near the Canadian National Vimy Memorial in France. I believe that history comes with a duty to remember those who sacrificed so much on those plains in northeastern France and every other conflict where Canadians have lost their lives protecting us. In these coming days, and indeed every day, Speaker, I look forward to ceremonies overseas and here at home to recognize the sacrifice of our Vimy heroes in France that gave us the pride and honour to stand strong and free today here in Canada. Thank you, Speaker.